Trish, you ready to go?
Okay, so Daisy's Dream, we're a small registered charity. We're based in Twyford. We cover the whole of Berkshire, supporting children, young people, and their families. We were established in 1996 by a local family to meet the needs of bereaved children. Um, we've uh, we've broadened it out now, and we also support children and young people and their families um, where a close family member, a parent usually, has a very serious illness with a terminal diagnosis. So we provide, as it say, tailored support and advice to the children and families. Um, all our services to families are provided completely free of charge. So we do offer one-to-one support in some situations for children and young people. We also offer telephone help and guidance to families and professionals such as teachers and social workers, particularly I think for teachers, because obviously it can be quite tricky for them to know how to support a grieving child or a young person. And I think sometimes for young people it can be quite tricky to know who to tell and who to go to for help. So we do a lot of telephone support to teachers, helping them to learn from what we have learned about what helps really in these situations. So we support children and young people directly through one-to-one sessions. We will also offer support over, video, FaceTime, or whatever, if a teenager, is asking for that. We can offer the one-to-one support at home or in school. Generally, the children and young people prefer us to meet them in school rather than in their home. We also run specialist group events, particularly when it's the death or serious illness of a wider family member, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, where they can meet up with other families facing similar situations. So I think we've got some, so this is just some pictures of one of our memory sessions that we held earlier this year. As you can see, there's a lot of activity going on. And in the next slide, you'll see a memory jar that one family were doing for their special person who died. And the next slide, this one is we've got, these are petals, these are daisy petals, and each family is thinking about their memories of their special person who died, and also how they were feeling at the time, where they were, who told them, and also what helps. So that the families do a lot of work and a lot of sharing with each other. And we find that is incredibly helpful, not only for the children and the young people, but also from the parents, because particularly in relation to grandparent deaths, for the parents, it's their parent who has died. And very often, with busy lives, working, raising a family, very often the parents aren't able to give themselves the time to just stop and reflect and grieve. And I think these memory afternoons gives a whole family that opportunity, and of sharing their sadness and their happy memories together. And we do find that works very well. Obviously, in addition to that, parents can ring us for, if they're wanting advice, or if issues around bereavement come up for them and they're not quite sure you know, maybe what to say or how to manage it. We're always on the end of a phone, and that goes for any professionals, teachers, social workers. They can just pick up the phone to us and seek advice, and you know, we'll get back to them quickly.
Can I just, as
Yes,
Olivia, Trisha's colleague, just to add that we don't have our own premises currently, so we hold these groups at village halls. So the venues kind of change just for practicalities, that they are kind of cross different parts of Berkshire.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a really good point. So the memory jars and the petals that the families make, they take home with them. So there's always a visual reminder for them of the day that they spent and the thoughts and feelings they had around that. And this is something that a child did about their granddad. Yeah, memory of their granddad. I don't know whether at this point you've got any questions. If not, what I would say about the support that we provide to families where there is perhaps a parent or a sibling with a very serious medical condition that is, you know, where there is a terminal diagnosis, that is really, really tricky, incredibly tricky, because in those situations, what happens both for younger children and teenagers is that life can become very unpredictable. Now, that's nobody's fault. It's certainly not the fault of the family. It's just nobody's fault, except, you know, you've got hospital visits, you might have visits for scans, something might happen in the night, meaning that very sick member of the family needs to be taken to hospital by ambulance. Sometimes for younger children, they won't necessarily know who's picking them up from school or who's taking them the next day. So that can have a massive impact on young children's sense of predictability and security. And I think for older children, those at secondary school, again, you know, a lot of their day in school or in college will be worrying about what's happening at home, because very serious illness can be very unpredictable. They may also have caring, you know, they may also be helping out with the caring of a parent or a sibling. So again, life is unpredictable, but not only unpredictable, as also for younger children, but a little bit less so, they feel a massive responsibility to do everything they can. So they've got a lot on their shoulders. And of course, you know, as well as that feeling of that burden of responsibility, they've got their day-to-day lives going on alongside that. So they'll have homework, they'll be trying to learn as well in class, and that can be really tricky. So they might not be able to get their homework in on time because they're sitting up in their room trying to concentrate on their homework, and actually all they can think of is, Dad was taken to hospital while I was at school today. I don't know what's going on, and I'm scared and I'm worried. But the other thing, particularly with teenagers, is that they like to be the same as everybody else. So they're not always good at letting their friends know what is going on, because they don't want to be treated differently. And what they realize is that once their friends know, they will be treated differently, understandably, but that can sometimes be tricky for them. It can also be tricky, particularly for young people in secondary schools, because unlike primary schools, which are usually small, teachers will often know almost all of the pupils in a primary school. In secondary school, it's very different. They've got a lot of different teaching staff, and again, they might not necessarily want to say what would help them. So a lot of our work is often liaising, being that liaison person between the young person and the school. You know, if we can get the young person to agree, if we say to them, look, we think it would be really, really helpful for you if we could let the year ahead know this is what you are feeling, this is what you're worrying about. And then that relieves the young person of having to think about and worry about who to tell. If they agree that we can talk to the year head or their form tutor, it means that the form tutor or year head can actually go to them very quietly and say, look, Trish or Olivia from Daisy's Dream was telling me that, you know, that things have changed in your family and that you're worrying a lot at the moment, which is understandable. You know, what can we do to help? What would help you? We find that's a good way in to help the young people get themselves the support they need when they're in the school environment. And I don't know how many of you we're talking to who are from schools, but what I would say is never underestimate the value of the support that you provide in schools, whether that's primary school or secondary school. It's critical and it's vitally important, and when it works well, it just gives your pupils or students the most amazing support and feeling of safety, feeling there is somewhere they can go, feeling that they're understood, feeling that it's recognized that they can't always concentrate in the way that they would like to. And it is amazing to see the difference it makes once the young person can properly engage with their school and ask for the support that, you know, that they understandably need. We would all need it in that situation as adults at work. So I just wanted to make that point. Have I missed anything else, Olivia? I probably have left loads out. I think, you know, obviously there are times in a child or young person's life when a really sad situation, you know, the death of a parent, or facing the death of a parent or sibling, can be particularly difficult. I think periods of transition, like a primary school pupil transitioning to secondary school at the same time, can be hugely difficult and add to their trauma, because they're leaving the safe environment that they've been in perhaps for the last 5 or 6 years and going to a much larger school where they won't know. They've got to build those relationships with a number of teachers, year head, form tutor. So that can be a tricky time. And obviously, running up to GCSEs and A levels, that can be really, really stressful for the student, because, you know, they want to do well, they know what they want to achieve, and they suddenly find that they can't concentrate, that their head is all over the place, and that can be very scary for them. And I think they need a lot of reassurance around that it's understandable, they're not going mad, and it will all settle down, but it will take time. A lot of things for young children, and I think particularly for young people for older children go underneath the radar. And I think our experience, has taught us that there are the things we know, that this child or student has a, a, a sibling that is dying, or this child or student has a dad who has just died. So that's what we know. And from our own experience, we can know that that is really, really sad and really difficult for a child or young person. What isn't seen, and is something that I think we've learned through the job that we do, is that a lot goes on under the surface for children and young people. So their friendships are really important to them, obviously, and it's good, and lovely friendships are formed at schools. But the child or young person suddenly feels, with the death of a parent or having a parent that's seriously ill, that somehow they are different. They feel different. And for young children, they can also feel that they look different, that everybody knows. And of course, everybody doesn't know, but they feel inside that they're very different. But on the other hand, they want to keep their friends. So they want to keep the normality around that. So, and this, I suppose, particularly we see in older children, young people, is that they will become very protective of their friends. So they might be in a group at lunchtime, and one of their friends is having a good old moan about mum or dad who wouldn't let them go to a party, or told them, yeah, you can go to the party, but I'm collecting you at 11. And the young person has, that the friend who's saying this has got very angry because they're being collected at 11 and their other friends are allowed to stay out much longer. So that person in the group has been really, really angry with their parent. And the grieving member of that group is thinking, you just ought to think yourself really lucky that you've got your dad here, or you've got your mum there to be angry with. I'd do anything to have an argument with my mum or my dad. So it's those sorts of things that go on under the surface, because the other thing that the young people know is that their friends can't possibly understand what it's like unless they've been through that situation. So on the one hand, they understand it, and they don't want to make their friends feel guilty or that they're walking on eggshells. So I think there's some of the unseen additional challenges that children and young people who are bereaved or facing bereavement are trying to grapple with.
Oh, about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, so what was I going to say? Yeah, we are supported by basically through community funding. We do get a little bit of support from we get no government support, but we do get a little bit of grant funding from charitable trusts and organisations, but primarily we are funded and we rely on donations from our local communities, who are amazing. So I think it's probably come up. So, for example, £10 could pay for a family to receive one of our tailored information packs, which are easy to read, offer valuable advice to them when they're most vulnerable. £10 could pay for a family to, yes, we're doing that. £50 will be enough to pay for a young person to receive a one-to-one session with one of our therapeutic practitioners here, of which Olivia and I are two. And we can provide that either at home or at school. £1,000 pays for one of our specialist therapeutic group events that we run for up to 20 children and young people. And we hold them at in relation to bereavement in relation to a parent or sibling who has died. We have an outdoor educational centre that we use, Path Hill, you might have heard about, and that works very well. And these are some of the pictures, I think, of the children carrying out some activities there. This is a memory wheel. Just, you know, getting together with other, so we hold a separate group, one for young children in primary school and a completely separate one for children in secondary school. And the biggest support I think we give through those groups are to bring them together with other children.
If Howard has got appointments to see Nicola Alloway, or
I think we've got somebody, sorry, who's
Miss
not
Woodburn.
muted.
So Miss Alloway sent in an email last.
Yeah. I think we had somebody that was not related talking there, I think. I think that's everything really about us to share for now. Is there any questions from anybody?